Would you raise a child with love? Would you give everything for him? If you knew that one day he would choose someone who would turn his back on you? The house is quiet on that Thursday afternoon. Donna Marlene, 58, is in the kitchen finishing washing the lunch dishes when the phone rings. Her heart skips a beat. Rogerio hasn't cared for nearly 3 weeks. She quickly dries her hands on her apron and answers with that hopeful voice only a mother can. Hello, my son. How are you? On the other end of the line, Rogerio's voice sounds different. Cold, distant. He takes a deep breath before speaking, and Marlene feels a tightness in her chest without even knowing why. Mom, I need to tell you something. She sits in the kitchen chair, still holding the dish towel. His tone isn't right. Something's wrong. Hey son, what's up? Silence. A silence that lasts seconds, but feels like an eternity. Clara, she doesn't want me to go there anymore. She said I'm paying more attention to you than to her. That I need to choose. Marlene's world begins to spin slowly. She opens her mouth to speak, but the words won't come out. Rogerio continues, and each syllable is like a blade cutting into her heart. Mom, Clara asked me to choose. Pause. A cruel, heavy pause, carrying the weight of a lifetime, and I chose her. The phone slips a little in Marlene's hand. She looks ahead, but sees nothing. The kitchen she painted yellow to welcome her son on Sunday. The cornmeal cake cooling on the stove. The table set for two. Everything blurs. Mom, are you there? She swallows hard. She tries to speak, but her voice comes out weak and broken. Yes, son, I'm here. Sorry, Mom, but I need to think about my family right now. Marlene closes her eyes. The pain is so great she can't even cry. It's a dry, deep ache that fills every corner of her chest. I understand, my son. Take care of your family. She hangs up. The phone falls to the table with a muffled sound, and there, in that yellow kitchen, sitting on a time-worn wooden chair, Donna Marlene understands what it's like to lose a child who is still alive. Marlene has always been a woman of faith. Born and raised in the countryside, the daughter of farmers, she learned early what it meant to work hard and dream small. Her childhood was marked by the smell of wet earth, the sound of the radio playing country music, and the calloused hands of her father who returned from the fields every day at sunset. Her mother was a seamstress, the kind who made party dresses for the entire town. And it was from her that Marlene learned to sew. She learned that every stitch had to be firm, because that was where the dignity of work resided. She was 19 when she met Antonio at a Snow Joe party. He was standing near the bonfire, with that shy look of someone who doesn't know how to square dance, but just stands there watching everyone having fun. Marlene noticed his gaze. A kind, honest look, the kind that doesn't lie. She approached with a mug of Cuento in her hand, and offered it to him. Are you cold? Antonio smiled, took the mug, and that's where it all began. He was a mechanic, working in his uncle's shop, fixing tractors, trucks, anything with an engine. His hands were always covered in grease, but he had the cleanest heart Marlene had ever seen. They dated for 3 months. 3 months of conversations on her doorstep, of handwritten notes, of whispered promises under the jabuticaba tree in the backyard. When Antonio proposed, it was the simplest way in the world. No expensive ring, no kneeling. He just held her hand and said, Marlene, I don't have much to give you, but I promise I'll respect you every day of my life. Will you marry me? She didn't think twice. Case, the wedding was at the town church on a Sunday morning. Marlene wore the dress her mother had sewn for weeks, a simple white gown with lace at the hem. Antonio wore a borrowed suit, his hair combed with brilliantine, nervous as she had never seen him. When the priest said, You may kiss the bride, he trembled so much he almost missed her mouth. Everyone laughed, and so did they. The party was at her parents' house. A simple white cake, snacks made by her aunts, and an accordion played until the early hours. Marlene danced with her father, cried on her mother's shoulder, and left hand in hand with Antonio, to begin married life in a small two-room house they had rented near the workshop. Those were months of pure happiness. Waking up early, making coffee, watching Antonio leave for work with that smile on his face. He'd come back covered in grease. But he'd always bring something. A flower he'd seen on the side of the road. A sweet treat he'd bought at the bakery. A tight hug that made Marlene forget any tiredness. A year later, she discovered she was pregnant. Marlene will never forget the day she told Antonio. He had just gotten home from work and was washing his hands in the kitchen sink when she came up behind him and hugged him around the waist. "Honey, I have something to tell you." He dried his hands on the cloth and turned to her, worried. "Did something happen?" Marlene smiled, took his hand and placed it on her belly. "We're going to have a child." Antonio's face changed. His eyes filled with tears. He hugged Marlene so tightly that she could feel his heart pounding against her chest. "Seriously, we're going to be mom and dad. Let's go." He fell to his knees, pressed his face against her belly, and began to cry. He wept with joy, with emotion, with gratitude. And Marlene, with her hand on his head, cried along with him. The pregnancy was uneventful. Marlene was nauseous for the first few months, but then she felt better. Antonio was always by her side. He did everything: cooking, cleaning, massaging her feet when they were swollen. At night, before bed, he would talk to her belly. "So, little one, today was a busy day at the shop. I fixed 3 tractors. When you grow up, I'll teach you everything. You'll be a better mechanic than me." Marlene laughed, running her hand over her belly. "What if it's a girl?" "If it's a girl, I'll teach her the same way. Women can be mechanics too." Rogerio was born on a March morning. The birth was difficult, long, and painful. Marlene thought she wouldn't make it, but when she heard her son's first cry, when the nurse placed that tiny, red, wet baby in her arms, it was all worth it. Antonio was outside the delivery room, pacing back and forth, biting his nails. When the nurse opened the door and said, "It's a boy," he ran in. He approached the bed, looked at his son, and collapsed. He cried like a child. "He's perfect, Marlene. Look at the size of his hand. Look at his little nose." He picked Rogerio up with great care, as if he were holding fragile porcelain. And there, in that simple little room in a public hospital, Antonio made a promise in a low voice. "Son, I promise you'll have everything I didn't have. You'll study, you'll be someone in life. And I'll be by your side through everything." Marlene looked at that scene and felt her heart overflow. She had a good husband and now she had a son. She had a family. She had everything. Rogerio's first 5 years were pure joy. He was a smart, curious, and energetic child. He learned to talk early, walk early, and ask questions that left Marlene speechless. "Mom, why is the sky blue? Mom, where does the sun go when it gets dark? Mom, when I grow up, will I be as big as Dad?" Antonio loved playing with his son. He'd come home tired from work, but he always found time to play ball in the yard, to fly airplanes with Rogerio on his shoulders, to tell bedtime stories, made-up stories, about dragons, knights, pirates. Rogerio listened with wide eyes, glued to his father. And then, Dad. What happened? Then the knight saved the kingdom and returned home, because his family was waiting. Always return to your family. Son, remember that. Rogerio slept happily, and Marlene, from the bedroom doorway, watched the scene and thanked God. But happiness doesn't last forever. It was an August night. It was raining heavily, the kind of winter rain that feels like it's going to blow the roof off. Antonio had stayed late at the shop because he needed to finish an urgent job. Marlene had called him 3 times. "Honey, come quickly. It's raining so much. I'm coming, honey." Just another half hour. But half an hour turned into an hour, and that hour turned into the worst night of Marlene's life. The phone rang at 10 o'clock at night. It was the owner of the garage. His voice was shaky and nervous. "Marlene, something happened." Her heart froze. "What's wrong? Is Antonio okay?" Silence. A silence that said it all. He had an accident on the way back. A truck lost its brakes on the way down and... "Marlene, I'm so sorry." The phone fell from her hand. Her legs gave out. She sat on the living room floor, gasping for breath. Rogerio appeared in his pajamas, rubbing his eyes. "Mom, what's wrong? Why are you on the floor? She looked at her son, that 5-year-old boy who still didn't understand what death was, who still believed his father would return every day. And now she would have to tell him that his father would never return. Marlene hugged Rogerio with all the strength she had. Daddy won't be able to come home today, son. Why? The tears flowed without stopping. Because he went to live with God. Rogerio remained silent, processing, trying to understand. But he's back tomorrow. Marlene hugged her son tighter. No, my love, he's not coming back. And there, on that cold floor, mother and son cried together. The funeral was on a cloudy day. Marlene wore black, holding Rogerio's hand, watching the coffin being lowered into the ground. Relatives, friends, and acquaintances passed by and offered their condolences. But she heard nothing. All she could see was the hole in the ground swallowing the man of her life. When everyone had left, Marlene stayed a little longer. Rogerio stood nearby, quietly, holding a toy car his father had given him. Mom, will Dad be cold down there? She knelt down to his level and wiped the tears from his little face. No, my son, he's warm now, he's with the angels, and he's looking at us. Okay, it always will be. Marlene stood up, took her son's hand, and left knowing her life had changed forever. Now it was just her and Rogerio, and she would have to be both a father and a mother at the same time. The week after the funeral, Marlene went back to work. Not because she wanted to, but because she had to. The bills wouldn't wait. Food wouldn't appear on its own. Rogerio needed clothes, medicine, and school. She intensified her sewing. She would wake up at 5 in the morning, sew until 7, take Rogerio to school, come back and sew until noon. She would pick up the boy, give him lunch, and then sew again until nightfall. But it wasn't enough. The money from her sewing barely paid the rent. That's when she got her second job. At night, from 8 to 11, Marlene cleaned offices downtown. She'd drop Rogerio off with her neighbor, catch 2 buses, clean 5 floors of an office building, and return home exhausted. Rogerio was asleep when she arrived. She would enter his room, kiss his forehead, and go to sleep knowing that the next day it would all be over again. On weekends, Marlene sold snacks at the market. She'd get up at dawn to fry Cox&Ha fritters, pastels, and cheese balls. Rogerio would tag along, helping with packaging and delivering to customers. He was 6 or 7 years old, but he already understood that life was hard, that his mother needed help. Mom, when I grow up, I'll work and you won't have to do all this. Marlene smiled, ruffling his hair. You just need to study. My son, I'll take care of the rest. And so the years passed. Marlene worked tirelessly. She slept little, ate poorly, and was constantly tired. But Rogerio grew up healthy, intelligent, and well-mannered. He was the best student in his class. He won every award at school, and Marlene treasured every certificate, every medal, every compliment from the teacher as if it were gold. When Rogerio was 10 years old, the teacher called Marlene for a chat. Mrs. Marlene, your son is exceptional. He has the potential to go far. Have you ever thought about putting him in a better school? Marlene looked at her own worn clothes, her old shoes, her calloused hands. A better school is expensive. Teacher, I know. But there's a scholarship. There's a way. He deserves this chance. Marlene left determined. If there was a way, she would find it. She searched for schools, filled out paperwork, and applied. And Rogerio got in. He received a full scholarship to a private school. A good school, with good infrastructure and qualified teachers. But the scholarship only covered the monthly tuition, the materials, the uniform, the transportation. Marlene had to pay for all of this. And she did. With more work, with more sacrifice, with more sleepless nights. Rogerio, even as a child, noticed, Mom, are you okay? You have dark circles under your eyes. I'm fine, son, I'm just sleepy. Do you want me to stop studying at this school? I'll go back to another one. Marlene cupped his face with both hands. Don't even think about it. You're going to study there until you graduate. And then you're going to go to college. You're going to be someone in life. But what about you? Me. I'm already someone. I'm your mother, and there's nothing in the world better than that. Rogerio jogged her, and Marlena felt that every sacrifice was worth it. His high school years were intense. Rogerio studied hard, got excellent grades, but he also helped out around the house. He washed dishes, swept the floor, and cooked when Marlene arrived late. They had a wonderful bond. They talked about everything: classes, friends, plans for the future. Mom, I'm going to study business administration. I want to work in a big company, earn well, and give you a better life. Marlene smiled, excited. Son, you don't owe me anything. I did everything because I wanted to. Because I love you. I know, Mom, but I still want to take care of you. In his senior year of high school, Rogerio took a prep course for the university entrance exam. He studied in the morning, attended prep courses in the afternoon, and then picked up books at night. Marlene saw her son working hard and prayed every day for him to pass, and he passed. When the results came out, Rogerio came home screaming, "Mom, I passed. I passed administration." Marlene was in the kitchen, peeling potatoes for lunch. When she heard him, she dropped everything and ran to her son. They hugged in the middle of the living room, jumping, crying, laughing. "I knew it, son. I knew you could do it. It was because of you, Mother. Everything I am is because of you." On graduation day, 4 years later, Marlene stood in the audience wearing a new dress she had sewn herself. She had never felt so proud. Seeing her son walk across the stage, receive his diploma, and wave to her. It was one of the happiest moments of her life. After the ceremony, Rogerio went to her and handed her the diploma. "This diploma is ours, Mom, mine and yours." She hugged her son, crying with happiness. "You did it, my son. You did it." Rogerio found a job quickly, a good company, decent pay. He bought a used but working car. And he continued living with his mother. Because he liked it. Because he wanted to be close. Every Sunday was sacred. They ate lunch together, talked, watched television. Rogerio talked about work, his colleagues, and his challenges. Marlene listened attentively, offered advice, and celebrated his every achievement. "Mom, they gave me a raise." "Really? My God, what a blessing. Now I'll be able to help more here at home." "Son, you don't have to. I still work, I know, but I want to. You've worked your whole life for me. Now it's my turn." Marlene's heart swelled. She had raised a good man, a grateful man, a man who honored his mother. Until 2 years after graduating, Rogerio came home with that different sparkle in his eye. Marlene knew her son all too well. She knew when he was happy, sad, worried. And that day, he was different. "Mom, sit here. I need to tell you something." She sat on the sofa, her heart already tightening a little. "What's up, son?" Rogerio smiled, a little embarrassed. "I met a woman." Marlene felt that typical tightness. That tightness every mother feels when her son starts looking at another woman, but she hid it, smiling back. "Tell me, who is she?" "Her name is Clara. We work in the same building. I met her in the elevator. Can you believe it? She dropped some papers. I helped her pick them up, and we started talking." His eyes shone as he told her. Marlene saw the passion there. She saw that he was genuinely interested. And what is she like? She's different, beautiful, intelligent, determined. She knows what she wants. She works in a designer clothing store, speaks well, dresses well. She's special, Mom. Marlene smiled, but inside, she felt a tinge of fear. Fear of losing her son. Fear of him drifting away. But she would never, ever let her son see that. "I'm happy for you, son. When will I meet her? I was thinking of bringing her here on Sunday. Do you mind?" "Of course not. I'll make that special lunch." Rogerio hugged his mother. "Thank you, Mom. I knew you would understand." That week, Marlene cleaned the entire house. She washed the curtains, waxed the floors, and organized everything. She wanted the house to be perfect. She wanted to make a good impression. Because if her son loved that girl, she would love her too. At least that's what she believed. On Sunday, Rogerio arrived with Clara. Marlene opened the door and saw the girl for the first time. Clara was truly beautiful. Straight, well-groomed hair, impeccable makeup, designer clothes. She smiled, but it was a polite smile. Cold. "Hi, Mrs. Marlene. Nice to meet you." Marlene gave a wide, welcoming smile. "The pleasure is mine, my daughter. Come in, come in. Make yourself at home." They entered. Clara looked around with that appraising look. The house was simple. Old furniture, peeling paint in some corners, worn flooring. Nothing compared to the standard Clara was accustomed to. But she didn't say anything. She just kept smiling that polite smile. Lunch was good. Marlene had prepared everything: rice, beans, roast beef, farafa, salad, and fries. Clara ate little, she said. She was on a diet. Rogerio ate with gusto and praised everything. "Mom, this meat is delicious." Clara smiled at her boyfriend, but didn't compliment the food. Marlene noticed, but didn't comment. After lunch, Clara helped carry the dishes to the kitchen. Marlene happily thanked her. "Thank you, my daughter. You didn't have to." Imagine, Donna, Marlene. But while washing the dishes, Marlene noticed Clara didn't talk much. She answered when asked, but didn't engage in conversation. She showed no interest in getting to know her mother-in-law. She was polite but distant. Rogerio, however, was happy, and that was all that mattered. Over the following months, Rogerio began taking Clara more often. But Marlene noticed that Clara was growing increasingly impatient. She would look at her watch, sigh, and say she had things to do. "Rogerio, we won't be staying long, right? Calm down, love. We just got here." Clara forced a smile. Marlene tried to please. She baked the sweets Rogerio said Clara liked, asked about her work, and complimented her clothes. But Clara was always cold, always distant. A year later, Rogerio proposed to Clara, and she accepted. When Rogerio told his mother, Marlene hugged her son tightly. "I'm so happy for you, my son." And she was, even with that fear deep in her chest, even with a feeling that something wasn't right. She was happy because her son was happy. The wedding was on a Saturday in November. Clara insisted on a big, expensive party. Her family helped pay for it. Marlene contributed what little she had. He bought her dress and paid for the bouquet. On her wedding day, Marlene looked beautiful, wearing a navy blue dress, her hair tied back, and a little makeup. She cried when she saw Rogerio in a suit, waiting for the bride at the altar. She cried with pride. She cried because she missed her husband, who wasn't there to see it all. She cried because she knew that from that day on, things would be different. Before Rogerio entered the church, Marlene held his hand. "Son, take good care of her, respect her, and be happy." Rogerio was excited. "Thank you for everything, Mom. Thank you for raising me alone, for sacrificing yourself, for making me the man I am. I love you." She hugged her son for the last time as a single mother. "I love you too, my son. I will always love you." At that moment, Marlene thought, "I'm gaining a daughter." She didn't know she was losing a child. The first months of their marriage were peaceful. Rogerio and Clara moved into a small apartment in the city center. It was modern, well decorated, and everything was brand new. Clara insisted on choosing every piece of furniture and every wall color. Rogerio agreed to everything. Marlene would visit from time to time. She always called ahead, always asked if she could come. She always brought something: a cornmeal cake, a pudding, some cookies I'd made. She wanted to help. She wanted to be present. She wanted to be a part of her son's life. Clara received the gifts with that polite smile that was already her trademark. "Thank you, Mrs. Marlene. You didn't have to. Imagine, my daughter. It's with love." But Marlene noticed. Clara didn't eat what she brought. On her next visit, the jars would come back full. Always with some excuse. "Oh, we forgot it in the fridge and it went bad. We ended up eating out this week. We're trying to eat lighter." Rogerio didn't notice, or pretended not to. He was immersed in married life, working hard, coming home tired. Clara managed everything: the house, the bills, the weekend plans. And little by little, without Rogerio realizing, she also began to manage his relationship with his mother. It started subtly, Loose comments, phrases thrown into the air. Rogerio, your mother calls a lot, doesn't she? Your mother spends a lot of time at other people's houses. Doesn't your mother have any other friends? Rogerio didn't take it seriously. He laughed, thinking it was just silly jealousy. Honey, she's my mom. It's normal for her to call. I know, but call every day, Rogerio. Every day. So what? I like talking to her. Clara sighed, as if she was being too patient. Okay, forget it. But she didn't forget. She kept every annoyance, every irritation, every time she thought Rogerio paid more attention to his mother than to her. Sundays, once sacred to Marlene and Rogerio, began to change. Before, he would go to his mother's house without fail. Now, he started skipping them. Mom, I won't be able to go today. Clara has a lunch date with her family. Okay, son, go ahead. I'll be there next week, I promise. But the next week, it was another excuse. Mom, Clara isn't feeling well. I'm going to stay here with her. Marlene understood. Or tried to understand. The wife had to come first. That's how it worked. She didn't want to be that intrusive mother-in-law. That mother who wouldn't let her son live. Take care of her. Son, give her a kiss. Yes, I will. Are you okay, ma'am? I am, my son. I'm fine. But she wasn't there. The house grew quieter and quieter. Sundays grew longer and longer. The food became increasingly tasteless, because she cooked just for herself. When Rogerio was able to go, he stayed less. He arrived late, left early, always looking at his cell phone, always answering Clara's calls. Hi, love, I'm at Mom's house. Okay, I'll be right there. No, I won't be long. Marlene saw her son restless, in a hurry. She saw him looking at his watch every 5 minutes, and her heart sank. But she said nothing. She didn't want him to feel pressured. She didn't want to be a burden. Go, son. Don't keep Clara waiting. Sorry, Mom. It's just that she gets worried when I take a long time. I understand. He would leave, and Marlene would be left alone, looking at the table still laden with food, the dishes barely touched, the silence returning to occupy every corner of the house. The calls also dropped dramatically. Before, Rogerio would call every day, at least to say goodnight. Now, he'd go a whole week without calling. Marlene tried not to call too much. She didn't want to bother anyone. She didn't want to be an inconvenience. But sometimes, the longing was too much. She would pick up the phone and call. Hello, son. How are you? Hi, Mom. I'm fine. Just running. Do you want to come over for dinner tomorrow? I'll make that chicken you like. Silence on the other end. That silence she already knew. That silence that came before the apology. Oh, Mom, it won't work. Clara already bought something for dinner here. Oh yeah, okay. But I'll go another day, okay? Okay, son, whenever you can. She would hang up and stare at the phone in her hand. When did it become like this? When did she need to make an appointment to see her own son? The neighbors began to notice. Donna Celia, who lived next door, commented one day, Marlene, where's your son? I haven't seen him around here in a while. Marlene forced a smile. Oh, he's busy. Work, marriage. You know how it is. I know, but still, right. A mother is a mother. You can't forget. Those words hurt. Because Marlene felt the same way. But she couldn't demand it. She couldn't force it. She couldn't force her son to love her. One Friday afternoon, Marlene had an idea. She'd made a Brigadeiro Rogers' favorite dessert. She put it in a pretty jar and tied a bow around it, and decided to surprise him. She'd go to their apartment, deliver the treat, give her son a quick hug, and leave. Without disturbing anyone. Without staying too long. She took 2 buses and arrived at the building. Her heart was pounding. She was anxious, happy to see her son, even if only for a few minutes. He rang the bell. He waited. He heard footsteps on the other side. The door opened. It was Clara. Her face changed instantly. The expression of tranquility turned to surprise. And then, it turned into something Marlene couldn't quite identify. Irritation. Discomfort. Oi, Donna Marlene. The tone was cold, dry, Hi, my daughter. Sorry to show up like this without warning. It's just that I made a little sweet for Ruggiero and thought I'd bring it. Clara didn't open the door again. She stood there, holding the handle, as if blocking the entrance. He's not here. Oh no. And where did he go? Solve some work stuff. Marlene glanced discreetly at the parking lot. Ruggerio's car was there, parked. Clara was lying, but Marlene didn't want to cause trouble. She just held out the pot. So, Can you give this to him? Clara took the pot without looking properly. Without properly thanking. It can leave. Thank you, my daughter, and sorry for the inconvenience. All good. Clara closed the door. Quickly, without saying goodbye properly. Marlene stood there in the hallway for a few seconds, processing that hadn't been polite, that had been cold, rejection. She entered the elevator alone. She pressed the button for the ground floor. And as she descended, tears began to fall. She wasn't welcome here. She was an intruder. An inconvenience. That night Ruggiero called. His voice was strange, tense. Mom, Did you come to my house today? Marlene took a deep breath. I'm gone, son. I brought you a little treat. Silence. A heavy silence. Loaded. Mom, Clara was upset. She doesn't like unannounced visits. Those words pierced Marlene's chest like a spear. A visitor. She had become a visitor in her son's life. Sorry, son. I didn't know it bothered you. It's not that it bothers you, Mom. It's just, It's her house too, and she wants her privacy. You understand, right? Marlene swallowed her tears. I understand, son. Next time, let me know in advance. Okay, it's okay. She hung up and lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, tears streaming silently. When had she become a problem? When had loving her son become a mistake? Sundays became increasingly rare. 1 week on, 2 weeks off. Then, 1 month on, 1 month off. Ruggerio's excuses were always the same, but Marlene had memorized them all. We're going to have lunch with Clara's family. We made an appointment. Clara wants to do a general cleaning. Marlene accepted everything. Without question, without complaint. Because she was afraid. Afraid that if she complained, he would pull away completely. Afraid of losing him completely. But even in silence, she was already losing. One night, alone in the kitchen, making soup just for herself, Marlene spoke out loud, as if trying to convince herself, it's normal. Once they get married, they change. That's how it is. All mothers go through this. She repeated it over and over, like a mantra, like a desperate prayer. Because if she stopped repeating it, she would have to face the truth. She was being forgotten, erased, excluded from the life of the son she had raised with so much love. And that truth hurt too much to accept. It was a Saturday night, almost 6 months after their wedding. Ruggiero and Clara were in their apartment. They had eaten dinner, washed the dishes, and were now in the living room. The TV was on, but neither of them was paying attention. Ruggiero was on his cell phone, answering work emails. Clara was beside him, but the emotional distance between them was enormous. She watched him. She saw him distracted, distant, and that irritated her. Roger. He looked up from his cell phone. Hey! Clara placed the teacup on the coffee table. She turned her entire body toward him. Her face was serious. We need to talk. Ruggiero hung up the phone. He knew that tone. It was the tone that came before an argument, before a demand. About what? About your mother. He felt his whole body tense. That subject again. Always that subject. What's wrong with my mother, Clara? She crossed her arms, her eyes fixed on him. I can't take it anymore, Ruggiero. I really can't take it anymore. What can you handle? This thing about your mother always being present in our lives. Always calling. Always texting. Always wanting to know where you are, what you're doing. I feel watched. I feel pressured. Ruggiero shook his head in disbelief. Clara, she barely calls anymore. She barely comes here. What are you talking about? Exactly. She barely comes here because I asked you to reduce contact. But even so, she keeps trying to intrude. That time she showed up unannounced. I felt invaded, Rogerio. Invaded in my own home. He sighed wearily. She just wanted to bring me some candy. She didn't mean any harm. The intention doesn't matter. What matters is that she doesn't respect our space. She thinks she can still come and go from your life whenever she wants. Rogerio stood up. He ran his hand through his hair nervously. Clara, she's my mother. She raised me alone. She sacrificed her whole life for me. I can't just ignore her. Clara stood up too. Her voice rose in pitch. I'm not asking you to ignore her. I'm asking you to set boundaries. To understand that you now have a wife. That you now have a new family. And that your mother can't be the center of your life forever. She is not the center of my life. Yes, it is. You don't see it, but it is. Every time I suggest we do something, you remember her. Oh, but what about my mom? She's alone. Every time she calls, you leave everything to answer. Every time she sends a message, you respond right away. With me, it takes hours. Rogerio remained silent, because part of him knew she was right. He truly felt guilty whenever he thought of his mother alone. He truly dropped everything when she called. He truly prioritized her at times, but it was his mother, the woman who had given up everything for him. How could he just turn away? Clara, I don't know what you want me to do. She took a step toward him, her eyes shining with anger. With frustration, I want you to choose. Silence. A heavy silence that fell on the room like a bomb. Rogerio's eyes widened. What do you mean, choose? It's exactly what you heard. Either you stay with me, by my side, building our life, our family, or you continue being the eternal mommy's boy. But both are no longer possible, Rogerio. I'm tired. He felt the ground disappear from under his feet. Are you asking me to choose between you and my mother? I am, and I want an answer. Now Rogerio ran his hand over his face in despair. How had he gotten to this point? How had a marriage that had started so well turned into this? He thought of his mother, of her calloused hands washing clothes in the sink, of her tired eyes coming home from work in the early hours, of the nights she spent sewing, cleaning, selling snacks all so he could have food, clothes, and school. He remembered the promises he'd made as a child. I'll take care of you forever, Mom. But he also thought of Clara, of the woman he had chosen to marry, of the promise he had made at the altar. For better or for worse, in sickness and in health, he had made a commitment, and a man honors his commitments. Clara began to cry, tears of anger, of frustration. I can't believe you're in doubt. I'm your wife, Rogerio. I should be your priority. But for you, I'll always come second. Always behind her. It's not that, Clara, ... double quotes yes, it is. And I'm not going to live like that. I didn't get married to share you. I got married to have a whole husband. Present by my side, Rogerio closed his eyes. His head was spinning. His heart was pounding. He knew that whatever decision he made, someone would get hurt, and he didn't want to hurt anyone. But Clara wasn't going to back down. She was there, standing, waiting, demanding an answer. Rogerio, last time, choose. He opened his eyes. He looked at his wife, and felt the weight of the decision fall upon him like a mountain. He thought, if I choose my mother, I'll lose my marriage. I'll lose Clara. I'll break a commitment. But if I choose Clara, ... He took a deep breath, and the decision was out of his mouth before he was even sure. I choose you. Clara sighed in relief. Her crying subsided. She went to him and hugged him. Thank you, love. I knew you'd do the right thing. We're going to be happy now. Just the two of us. The way it's meant to be. Rogerio hugged his wife back. But inside, something had broken. Something he didn't know if he could fix. On Sunday morning, he woke with a weight on his chest. He knew what he had to do. And he dreaded the very thought. Clara was beside him, still asleep. He got out of bed slowly, went to the living room, and picked up his cell phone. He looked at his mother's name in his contact list. His fingers trembled. His throat felt tight. He looked at the clock. 9 in the morning. Mom would be awake by now. She'd probably already made coffee. You were probably already waiting. Because Sunday was always their day. Rogerio took a deep breath. He pressed the power button. The phone rang once, twice. On the third ring, she answered. "Hello, my son. How are you?" Her voice was full of joy, full of anticipation, and that made everything worse. "Hi, Mom, ... Double quotes. His tone sounded strange, weak, and Marlene noticed it immediately. Her smile faded, her heart raced. "Son, what's wrong? Did something happen?" Rogerio closed his eyes tightly. "Mom, ... I need to tell you something." Marlene sat down on the kitchen chair. Her legs had suddenly gone weak. "Speak, my son." Silence. A painful silence on the other end of the line. Clara ... She doesn't want me to go there anymore. Marlene's world slowly began to crumble. "What do you mean, son?" She said that I'm paying more attention to you than to her. That our relationship is getting in the way of the marriage. That I need to choose. Marlene held the phone with both hands, her whole body trembling. "And you, ... what are you going to do?" Rogerio swallowed hard. His voice was weak, embarrassed, and full of guilt. "Mom ... Clara asked me to choose." Pause. A pause that lasted seconds but felt like an eternity. "And I chose her." The silence that fell was absolute. Marlene opened her mouth, but no sound came out. She looked ahead, but saw nothing. The yellow kitchen, the table she had set for two, as she did every Sunday, the cornmeal cake cooling on the stove, everything disappeared. "Mom, are you there?" She tried to speak, she tried to breathe, but it felt like all the air had gone out of the world. "Yes, son, I'm here." The voice came out like a thread, weak, broken. "I'm sorry, Mom, but I need to think about my family right now. I have a wife. I have responsibilities. Family." That word stabbed her in the chest like a knife. She had been his family his entire life, his only family. And now, suddenly, she was nothing anymore. "I understand, my son. Take care of your family. Thank you for understanding, Mom. I knew you would understand. You always understand everything." Marlene pressed her lips together tightly, to keep from crying. "I love you, son. I always will. I love you too, Mom." She hung up before him. Because if she didn't hang up now, she would fall apart. And she didn't want him to hear. She didn't want him to feel guilty. She didn't want to be a burden. The phone slipped from her hand and fell to the table with a dull thud. Marlene sat there, staring into space. There were no tears. There were no screams. There was nothing. Just a vast, aching emptiness that filled every inch of her chest. She stood up slowly. Her legs were shaking. She went to the living room. To the sideboard where the photos were kept, she picked up the framed photo of Rogerio as a child. He was smiling, holding a kite his father had made for him. Marlene hugged the picture frame, pressed it to her chest, and finally, the tears came. They came hard, with pain, with despair. "I gave birth, I raised, and now he turns me off with one phone call." She fell to her knees right there in the living room, holding the photo of her son, crying like she had never cried before. Not even when her husband died had she cried like this. Because losing her husband was painful, but losing her son was like losing a piece of herself. It was like losing the meaning of everything. The days that followed were the darkest of Marlene's life. She woke up, but had no reason to get up. She made coffee, but didn't drink it. The taste was gone. Everything had lost its appeal. She sat in the living room, but didn't turn on the TV. She just sat there, staring at the walls, trying to make sense of it. What had she done wrong? Where did she go wrong? She replayed every memory in her head, every sacrifice, every sleepless night sewing, every market selling snacks, every time she chose to eat less so he could eat more, every time she skipped buying new clothes to buy him school supplies. And now he had discarded her, as if she were nothing, as if everything she had done was worthless. Marlene tried to maintain her routine, but everything felt empty. She cleaned the house, but for what? She cooked, but for whom? She tidied things up, but why? There was no one left to wait for on Sunday. There was no one else to make food for. There was no one else The neighbors started asking, and each question was torture. Where's Rogerio, Marlene? I haven't seen him in a while. She forced a smile that hurt her face. Oh, he's busy. Wedding, work. You know how it is. But he doesn't even come on Sundays anymore. No, he has his own life now. The words came out of her mouth, but inside, Marlene was dying of shame. Shame at admitting that her son no longer wanted to see her. Shame at being that rejected, forgotten mother whom even her own son didn't want around. At night, the worst moment was bedtime. Marlene lay in bed with her cell phone on the nightstand, the volume turned up to maximum, waiting, always waiting. A message, a call. Anything that would show he still remembered her. But the phone remained silent. That cruel, heavy silence that screamed louder than any words. Sometimes, in the middle of the night, Marlene would pick up her phone. She'd open WhatsApp. She'd look at Rogerio's profile picture. He was smiling, hugging Clara, happy. She typed a message. Hi son, how are you? I miss you. She stared at the message, her fingers trembling on the send button. But she didn't send it. She was afraid. Afraid of being ignored. Afraid of bothering someone. Afraid of hearing that she was being intrusive. Afraid of pushing her son further away. She deleted the message. She put her phone back on the table and cried silently, hugging her pillow, trying to muffle her sobs so her neighbor wouldn't hear. If he wants to talk to me, he knows where I am. He always knows where I am. But he didn't speak. 1 week turned into 2. 2 turned into a month. 1 month turned into 2. And the silence only grew. Marlene began to blame herself. Had she loved too much? Had she been possessive, smothering? Had she held on to her son when she should have let him go? She talked to herself at night in the empty kitchen. I just wanted to know if he was okay. I just wanted to be close. Is that wrong? Is that a crime? But there was no answer. Only the echo of his own voice. One Sunday, out of pure habit, Marlene woke early and set the table. She set 2 plates, 2 glasses, 2 napkins. She made a full lunch, rice, beans, steak with onions, and salad. Rogerio's favorite food. Noon. She looked at the door. He hadn't arrived. 1 hour, nothing. 2 hours. The phone didn't ring. At 3 o'clock in the afternoon, Marlene looked at the set table and felt something break inside her. He wouldn't come. Not today, not tomorrow, maybe never again. She dismantled the table with trembling hands. She put the food away in the fridge. She washed the dishes. And when she was done, she leaned against the sink and cried. She cried with her hand over her mouth to keep quiet. She cried until she had no more tears left. I created him to love, not to choose. The weeks dragged on. Marlene lost weight. Her clothes grew baggy. Her eyes grew sunken. Her smile faded. The neighbors commented worriedly. Marlene, are you okay? You're very thin. I'm fine. Just tired. But it wasn't weariness. It was grief. The grief of a mother who lost her son without seeing him die. The grief of someone who still sees that person alive, breathing, existing somewhere in the world, but completely out of reach. Marlene sent messages from time to time. Short messages. Simple. No charge. Good morning, son. God bless you. Good night. Sleep well. Happy week. Rogerio saw it, but he didn't respond. Every message he viewed was a stab in the back. Every message he ignored was confirmation. She had become a nuisance. A burden, something he preferred to pretend didn't exist. But Marlene kept on commanding. Because deep down, she still had hope. Hope that one day he would remember her. Hope that the love she had planted for years would finally bear fruit. Hope that he would realize he only has one mother. And that once she's gone, she never comes back. One night, kneeling beside her bed, Marlene prayed a different prayer. It wasn't a prayer of anger. It wasn't a prayer of denunciation. It was a prayer of surrender. God, I don't understand what's happening. I don't understand why I'm being punished like this. But if he's going to come back, let him come back with love. Not out of pity. Not out of obligation. Not out of guilt. But because he remembers that I'm his mother. And that I'll always be here. She lay down, pulled the blanket up to her chin, and slept with her hand on her phone, waiting, always waiting, because a mother never gives up, even when she should. For long months passed. 120 days of silence. 120 days of solitude. 120 days of waking up with a sore chest, sleeping with swollen eyes, living on autopilot. Marlene had learned to live with absence. It wasn't really living. It was just existing. Waking up, doing the rote tasks, going to bed, sleeping, and repeating the next day. She had even stopped setting the table on Sundays. She cooked less. She ate less. She smiled less. She lived less. It was a Friday afternoon. March. It was starting to get cold. Marlene was in the living room, hemming a pair of pants her neighbor had borrowed. She needed the money. She always did. The house was silent, only the sound of the needle passing through the fabric, until the doorbell rang. Marlene stopped. She looked at the door, confused. She wasn't expecting anyone. She never expected anyone. She got up slowly, put her sewing aside, and went to the door. When she opened it, the world stopped. It was Roger. But it wasn't the Rogerio she knew. It wasn't her well-groomed, well-smelling, smiling son. He was a haggard, thin man with dark circles under his eyes, unshaven, and wrinkled clothes. He carried a backpack on his back, and his gaze was empty. Lost. "Hi, Mom." The voice came out weak, embarrassed, scared. Marlene stood there, her hands still on the doorknob. She couldn't speak. She couldn't process it. Rogerio was there. After 4 months, her son had returned. "Son, ... Her voice came out in a whisper. "Can I come in?" She stepped back, still in shock, and he entered slowly, as if he were afraid to be there, as if he wasn't sure he was welcome. He placed his backpack on the living room floor, and stood, unsure of where to sit. Marlene closed the door, turned to him, and finally noticed his condition. He was a wreck. Are you okay?" He didn't answer. He just lowered his head. "Sit down, son. I'll make some coffee." She went to the kitchen, her heart racing. Her hands were shaking so badly, she almost dropped the thermos. She put water on to boil, grabbed the coffee, and set everything to automatic mode. Her head was spinning. What had happened? Why was he there? Why was he like that? She put the coffee in the pot, grabbed 2 cups and sugar, and returned to the living room. Rogerio was sitting on the sofa, hunched forward, with his head in his hands. Marlene placed the tray on the coffee table. She poured his coffee first, then her own. She sat in the armchair across from him. They were silent for a while. Just the clink of cups. Just his heavy breathing. "Mother, ... He lifted his face, and that's when Marlene saw it. His eyes were red and puffy. He'd been crying. "A lot. Clara left me." The words came out dry, clipped, as if each syllable hurt. Marlene didn't react. She didn't say anything. She just continued looking at her son, waiting for him to continue. Rogerio ran his hand over his face, trying to compose himself. She said I wasn't the man she expected, that I was weak, that I had no attitude, that I didn't know how to lead the family. He gave a bitter, humorless laugh. "Funny, huh? She made me choose between you and her. One chose her, and in the end, she threw me away anyway." The tears began to fall. He didn't try to hide it. He didn't try to wipe it away. He just let it fall. "I messed up, Mom. I hurt you. I turned my back on you. I was the worst son in the world. And now I have no one. I have nothing." He covered his face with his hands and began to sob. A deep, desperate cry of someone who had lost everything. Marlene felt her chest tighten. Because she knew. She always knew. Clara didn't love her son. Clara wanted control. She wanted power. And when she realized Rogerio wasn't the puppet she imagined, she discarded him like a broken object. But still, even with all the pain he'd caused, even with all the months of silence, abandonment, rejection, he was her son. He was the boy she'd carried, breastfed, raised alone. He was the only family she had. Marlene put the cup aside. She got up from the armchair. She walked over to the sofa and sat down next to him. Rogerio shrank back like a child, afraid of being rejected. "I'm sorry, Mom, I'm an idiot. I don't deserve to be here. I don't deserve your forgiveness. Marlene took a deep breath. She felt her own tears wanting to come out, but she held them back, because now wasn't the time to cry. It was time to tell the truth. She placed her hand on her son's face. She turned him to her. His eyes were destroyed, full of shame, full of guilt. Son, I never wanted to make you choose. I never wanted to be a priority. I never wanted to be ahead of your wife. Her voice was firm, clear, without anger, but also without submission. I just wish you wouldn't erase me from your life. That you wouldn't treat me like I was a problem. Like I was a burden, Hajedu? Cried harder. I know, Mom. I know. And I was a bastard. Marlene shook her head. No, you weren't a scoundrel. You were a man trying to balance two things that should never have been placed on the scales. Mother and wife are not opposites. They are not rivals. They can coexist. But someone made you believe they can't. She wiped the tears from his face with her thumb. I raised you alone because I loved you. Not because I expected anything in return. Not because I wanted you to owe me your life. I did it all for love. True love. The kind of love that doesn't charge, that doesn't hold you back, that doesn't suffocate. Rogerio hugged his mother desperately. He held her tightly, as if he were clinging to the last thing he had left in the world. Forgive me, Mother. For the love of God, forgive me. Marlene closed her eyes. She felt the weight of her son in her arms. She smelled him. She felt his presence. And for a moment, she went back in time. Back to the day he was born. Back to the first time she held him. Back to all the promises she had silently made. I will always love you. No matter what happens. No matter what you do. I will love you. I forgive you, son. I will always forgive you, because I am your mother. And a mother doesn't give up. Never. They stayed like that, hugging each other, crying together, for long minutes. All the silence of 4 months being broken. All the pain being exposed. All the wound being opened so it could truly heal. When they finally let go, both of them were red-eyed and wet-faced. But there was something different in the air. Something lighter. As if a huge weight had been lifted. Marlene wiped away her own tears and forced a smile. Now get up. Come help me make dinner. Rogerio looked at her, surprised. Do you want me to help? Sure. Do you still know how to make coffee? He smiled for the first time since he had arrived. A weak smile, but genuine. I know. Just the way you taught me. They went to the kitchen together, and there, side by side, peeling potatoes, seasoning meat, making rice, Rogerio returned to being the boy who helped his mother. The boy who said, when I grow up, I'll take care of you. The boy who had a good heart, but who had lost his way along the way. And Marlene, for the first time in 4 months, felt the house full again. He felt like it was worth waking up the next day. He felt like he still had a reason to live. The weeks that followed were spent in silent reconstruction. Rogerio stayed with his mother, not because he had nowhere else to go, he had the money to rent an apartment, but because he needed to be there. He needed to reconnect. He needed to learn all over again what family was. Little by little, routine returned. But it was a different routine. More mature, more conscious, more balanced. Rogerio helped with the chores around the house. He fixed things that were broken, the leaky faucet, the cabinet door that had come off its track, the window lock. He shopped, he paid bills. He kept his mother company on silent nights, but he also went out with friends when they invited him. He sometimes went to the movies alone. He worked, came back, lived his life. Because he had learned an important lesson. Being present doesn't mean giving up on yourself. It means being available. It means not forgetting. And Marlene had learned she had learned not to expect, not to demand, not to create crushing expectations. She was there, present, available, but not dependent, not needy, not desperate. She had learned that true love is about giving space. It's about trust. It's about being there when the other person needs it, but not invading when they want to be alone. One Saturday afternoon, Rogerio was in the living room fiddling with the wall clock that had been standing still for years. It was an antique clock, made of dark wood, with gold hands. It had belonged to his father. "Mom, I think I figured out the problem." Marlene appeared in the kitchen doorway, drying her hands on the cloth. "Did you find out?" "It was just the battery. It was dead." He changed the battery, and the clock started working. Again, tick-tock, tick-tock. The sound filled the house in a comforting way. Marlene smiled. "Your father always said that clock was stubborn. It would stop, but it would never break completely." Rogerio looked at his mother with a half-smile. "Same as you." She frowned, like this. "You stopped for a while. But you never broke. You never gave up. Even when I didn't deserve it, you stayed there." Marlene felt her eyes well up. "I almost broke down, son. I almost gave up. But God wouldn't let me. And now I understand why." They sat in silence, listening to the clock tick away. And Marlene thought, some things take time to fix. But when they do, they work better than before. Stronger, wiser. Sundays were special again. But in a different way. There was no longer that suffocating expectation. I no longer felt that pressure of he has to be here. It was natural, spontaneous, genuine. They ate lunch together, talked, laughed. Rogerio told them about work, his plans, what he was feeling. And Marlene listened, really listened, without judging, without trying to fix things, just listening. "Mom, do you remember when I was little and I asked you to make that carrot cake with chocolate frosting?" "I remember. You'd eat 3 pieces at a time and your belly would be full. I would still eat 3 pieces." They laughed, and in that laughter there was healing. There was true forgiveness. There was renewed love. Months passed. 6, 7 months. Rogerio was better. He'd gained weight again, was smiling more, sleeping better. The wound had healed. He had forgiven himself, and he had learned. That's when he met Fernanda. She worked at the same company as him, but in a different department. They bumped into each other in the hallway, in the elevator, in the break room. They started talking. Small talk about work, traffic, the weather. Until one day, he invited her out for coffee. And something started. Fernanda was different from Clara. Completely different. She was calm, kind, patient. She didn't demand. She didn't press. She didn't manipulate. She was just there, present, genuine. When Rogerio told his mother he was seeing someone, she was happy, but she was also apprehensive. "What is she like, son?" "She's special, Mom. In the right way. She's good." Marlene smiled. "I want to meet her." Rogerio was nervous. Because he was afraid. Afraid that history would repeat itself. Afraid that her mother wouldn't like her. Afraid that Fernanda wouldn't like her mother. When he told Fernanda that he wanted to introduce her to his mother, she was nervous too. "What if she doesn't like me?" Rogerio held her hand. "She'll like it, because you're a good person. And my mother recognizes good people from afar." On the appointed Sunday, Fernanda arrived with a bouquet of flowers for Marlene. A simple gesture, but filled with respect. "Mrs. Marlene, it's a pleasure to meet you. Rogerio talks so much about you." Marlene received the flowers with emotion. "The pleasure is mine, my daughter. Come in, make yourself at home." Lunch was light, delicious, and full of laughter. Fernanda praised the food. She ate it. She helped with the dishes, not because she had to, but because she wanted to. And she talked to Marlene as if she were talking to a friend. She asked about her life, about what it was like raising Rogerio alone, about stories from the past. And Marlene realized, this girl was different. This girl didn't see her as a rival. She didn't see her as a threat. She saw her as an important part of the life of the man she was learning to love. When they left, Fernanda hugged Marlene. "Thank you for lunch, Mrs. Marlene. It was wonderful. Would you mind if we came back next week?" Marlene smiled, moved. "Of course, my daughter. Every week. The house is yours." When the door closed, Marlene stood there, holding the flowers, her heart full. And for the first time in a long time, she felt hope. Hope that her son had found someone real. Someone who wouldn't take him away from his mother. Someone who understood that family isn't about choosing. It's about inclusion. The months passed. Rogerio and Fernanda remained together. They dated for a year, and then he proposed. But this time, it was different. He told his mother first. "Mom, I'm going to ask Fernanda to marry me." Marlene smiled, her eyes filling with tears. "I'm so happy, my son. Do you think I'm doing the right thing?" She held his hand. "I think you found a good woman, a woman who respects you, who respects me, who understands what real family is, and I'm at peace, son, I'm at peace." Ruggiero hugged his mother. "This time it will be different, Mom, I promise." And it was. The wedding was simple, beautiful, and full of true love. And when it was time for the waltz, Fernanda made a point of asking Marlene to dance with Ruggiero. "Mrs. Marlene, this first dance is yours. You created this man. You deserve it." Marlena cried, Ruggiero cried. And there, dancing with her son, she understood. Some children come back late, but they still come back. And when they truly come back, they come back better, more mature, more aware, more grateful. When the song ended, Ruggiero whispered in her ear, "Thank you for not giving up on me, Mom." She smiled, wiping away her tears. "I would never give up, son, never." Years later, when Marlene already had completely white hair, when Ruggiero was already the father of 2 children, when Fernanda was already part of the family as if she had always been there, she looked back and understood. "I understood that the pain had been necessary. That absence had taught me the value of presence. That the wrong choice had paved the way for the right one." She looked at her grandchildren playing in the backyard, at her son helping Fernanda in the kitchen, and felt gratitude. Because a mother's love isn't measured by physical presence, it's measured by true presence. By being there even when her child isn't. By loving even when she isn't loved in return. By forgiving even when forgiveness hurts. And Marlene had learned this the hard way. But she had learned. She closed her eyes, listening to the sound of the wall clock ticking away, and gave thanks. Because some children come back late, but they still come back. And when they do, love welcomes. Love embraces. Love rebuilds. Always. How many mothers are alone today, waiting for a call that may never come? How many mothers have been cast aside, forgotten, as if all the love they gave throughout their lives was worthless? This story isn't just about Donna Marlene. It's about thousands, perhaps millions of mothers across Brazil. Mothers who raised children alone. Mothers who gave up their own dreams, their own health, their own youth, just to see their children grow up. And when they grow up, they often forget. They forget the sacrifices. They forget the sleepless nights. They forget the hidden tears. They forget the shared food. They forget the old clothes their mother wore so she could buy new ones for her child. They forget the ones they loved first. The ones they loved unconditionally. The ones they loved until it hurt. But a mother's love never fades. It waits. It forgives. It endures. Even when it's unrequited. Even when it's rejected. Even when it's forgotten. And when the son finally understands, when he finally returns, when he finally realizes what he's lost, the mother is there, with open arms, no pressure, no resentment, no hurt, only love, that never died, that will never die. Because true love isn't measured by presence, it's measured by essence. By being available even when not sought. By loving even when not loved in return. By forgiving even when the pain is too great. If you still have your mom, call her today, right now. Send a message, pay her a visit. It doesn't matter if you fought. It doesn't matter if you're busy. It doesn't matter if you think she'll understand. Don't put it off until tomorrow. Because tomorrow might be too late. Because one day, when you go looking for it, it might not be there anymore. And then you'll carry the weight of its absence for the rest of your life. And if you're a mother going through this right now, being forgotten, rejected, pushed aside, know that you're not alone. Know that the pain you feel is real. It's valid. And it runs deep. But also know that the love you gave was not in vain. One day, somehow, it will return. It may take time. It may hurt. It may seem like it will never happen. But it will return. And when it does, it will be bigger, stronger, and truer than before. Comment below if this story touched your heart. If you identified with it. If you're a mother who's been through this, or if you're a son who realized, before it was too late, the value of a mother, like this video if you recognize the value of mothers. If you know that mothers are irreplaceable, that mothers are unique, that mothers are forever. And follow the channel, because every mother deserves to be remembered. Every mother deserves to be valued. Every mother deserves to be loved, before her silence turns into eternal longing.